Welcome to another video from Gweilo 60. Today, woke up this morning with a little bit of hangover because Ronnie and me went out for beers last night. Yes, we did. And then Wei Fong and me went for dim sum this morning. Chinese dim sum is to die for, I'm telling you. It was, oh, I love it. Anyway, that's not what this video is about. I've been thinking about doing a video like this for a while, and so I picked a quiet street in Nanning City in the shade because she's 35 frickin' degrees outside and no wind, about 90% humidity. Yes, a nice September day in Nanning. But this is going to be a little bit different of a video. Usually I rant, I give my opinion, but this video is a story about an 81, 82, or 83-year-old guy, Chinese man. He was born in 1936, 1937, or 1938. We're not sure because back in those days, they didn't have birth certificates. Most people were born in villages, and the only way we can find out sort of how old he is, and this is my wife's father. His story is interesting. It's tragic. It has some similarities to the Western world. And well, you tell me what you think. And I don't know if I'm going to slay this one or screw it up, but I figured that the story needs to be told. Xian Tong, the life and times of Xian Tong. He was born in Bobai back, as I say, in the 30s, late 30s, and his father had a brother and a sister. And the sister married a man from Nanning City. Thus, we're in Nanning City. But how did Xian Tong's aunt become his mother? Well, there we go. They were married for a while, his aunt and her husband in Nanning, and they couldn't have kids. So the two brothers got together, and one brother gave his sister a son, Xian Tong, and the other brother gave his sister a daughter. So, Xian Tong's sister. Not a nice lady, but we'll get to that lady later type thing. Oh yes, and that is Sprite back there with a little bit of Yap brandy. Yes, I'm back to my old stuff again. Here we go. So, back in, say, 1940, Xian Tong moved to Nanning City as a little kid. Giving your children away. See, in the West, I don't think that would go over very well. So he grew up in Nanning City, going to school. He was basically put on the aunts and uncles' hukou, which is a house book that says who's supposed to be living there and whatever. Because back in those days, and even up to just recently, if your family hukou said that you weren't supposed to be there, you're not supposed to be there. You can't go to school there. You don't get the perks of a Chinese citizen. All right. So he grew up in Nanning City going to school, and I guess he didn't make it very far in school, but ended up having to go to work at a very young age. Well, he started at a garment factory on Minzu Dadao right in the middle of Nanning City at that time, and still is in the middle of Nanning City. All right, so he started out as a truck driver and worked his way up to a manager of this garment factory, and a fairly big communist-run garment factory. And back in those days, a garment factory or any manufacturing company had a quota. You have to make this many in a year. You have this many employees, and you don't make any more because it doesn't benefit you. You don't get paid anymore. You don't work any harder, and it's like making cadiddles and cadaddles. You make as many cadiddles and cadaddles as you're supposed to, and that's it. That was the way the communist regime worked back in the 50s. Let's say we're into the 50s now, and I might be wrong on some of the dates, and a lot of the stuff is. Even Wei Fong doesn't know a lot of the history of her father, so I'm going on the bits and pieces that I've learned over the last 16, 17 years. Okay, so he worked his way up to manager of this garment company in Nanning City. and as I say, it was run by, you know, in the old communist way. But back in 1978, when Chairman Mao died and Deng Xiaoping took over, what they did is they opened up Guangdong province for manufacturing, not only for use in China, but for export. So these factories got freaking huge, you know, because it was like the market economy took over in Guangdong province starting in 1978. Liao Tong, when he was a manager, he had power because, you know, he was a fairly influential character in Nanning, which wasn't very big back then. As the Cultural Revolution started, Wei Feng's mother, Sensen, was the daughter of a Dizi, a very wealthy landowner, and actually was a daughter of his second wife. So Wei Feng's grandfather had two wives. Oh my God! You just think about stuff like that. Anyway, and her mother died in childbirth. So that's okay, I guess. That's the way it goes back in the day. Well, when the Cultural Revolution hit, all of the rich landowners, all of the educated people, all of they were paraded around with Dun's hat, big hats on their head. A lot of them were exported to the countryside to work in farms. And some of them just disappeared. And that's what happened with Wei Feng's grandfather on her mother's side, was he just disappeared. And because she was the daughter of a Dizi, she wasn't supposed to be around either, but an aunt snagged her and her older brother and raised them as her own. Because Liao Tong had this management position at this factory, he sort of knew what was going on in the government, and at that time they were looking for people like this, like Wei Feng's mother. Okay, so whenever they would go looking in this area of town, and this area of town, and this area of town, and you never knew where they were going to be. But you see, Liao Tong did. And he sort of had the hots for Wei Feng's mom. Obviously, they ended up getting married. But every time the police would go to do a check in a certain area where Wei Feng's mother was, Liao Tong would tell her what was going on, and she would move to a different area so they wouldn't ever find her. And I guess this is what spurred her to marry Liao Tong. And they got married in, I don't even know. Wei Feng is 48 and her brother is 50. So we're talking back in the mid 60s here, and having children in the late 60s and early 70s. Okay, so during this time period, they built a house with other family members on Gweilo. A shithole. It's not a very nice place. And had a couple of kids. Oh, and back up a little bit. See, he kept telling Suzanne when these people would be coming around, so she never got caught. But one time she did get caught. And what they did is they exported her ass out to the rice paddies to work on a farm. Okay, so that worked out fairly good for her, because after she retired and got her pension, she got paid more because she spent time on these farms, which I guess is a good thing. Maybe not when you're working the rice farms, but anyway. So after she was done working the rice farms, they got married and they moved to Gweilo and built a house with family. Well, that worked out good for a while and everything, but back to when Guangdong opened up to the real world. And the real world, I mean in the market economy, dealing with factories, both for domestic consumption and for export. And I say these factories got big. Now, the communist-run factories could not compete because of the economies of scale of these factories in Guangdong were huge. So, needless to say, by 1988, the factory that Liao Tong was a manager of closed down. And what did they do for him? They gave him 30,000 RMB as severance pay, which is about, I don't know, $5,000 to $6,000 Canadian or $4,000 to $5,000 American. Yeah. So what did Liao Tong do? Well, he started fixing. He bought a compressor and some tools, and he started fixing bicycles on a street corner. And he saved his 30,000 RMB. Until he decided, well, this is too much work, and he decided that he was going to buy a taxi and run a cab in Nanning. Well, that worked out for a little while, but the cab broke down. Yes, and they didn't have the money to fix it, and that died because, you see, he didn't have the wherewithal, being somebody that worked in a communist factory. He didn't have that entrepreneurial mindset, I guess is what you're going to call it. So he was on the street fixing bicycles, him and Suzanne. He got a taxi, that didn't work, and then he was back on the street fixing bicycles for the next 20 years. Yes, on a street corner in 35, 40 degree weather, 100% humidity in the summer, fixing bicycles on the street corner. This guy's got a lot of kahunas, because who would do that to make money? They did everything that they could. Suzanne would make cigarettes at night and sell cigarettes, like roll cigarettes and sell cigarettes during the daytime. Wei Fong would help her. So that, you know, a family that sticks together and works together stays together. And it worked out that way. Okay, until 2003 when I came on the scene, and because I'm a Westerner, and it took us a little bit of time, because when I met Wei Fong, I had $26,000 in the bank and a $60,000 mortgage in Canada. So we could spare like $300 a month, and that's what we sent them for the first 4 or 5 months, and then we started getting a little bit more money together, and we ended up buying in 2005 a house in Beihai. We moved the family down to Beihai. Well, okay, they were okay for about a year, but you see, they're from Nanning City, which is a capital city of Guangxi province, and there's some pride that goes along with that. So they said, well, we don't want to live here anymore. We want to move to Nanning City. So I say, okay, sell this place, and we bought the place on Hojilu that we live in today, and we like it there, and it's good. During all of this time period, I was sort of financing the family. I was financing Liao Tong and Suzanne to make sure that they didn't have to go out on the street and fix bicycles anymore, because by this time, you know, she's pushing 60 and he's pushing 70 years old, and you're not going to live long if you're pushing yourself to those extremes. Okay, so that's fine. Up until, I think it was 2008, 2009, where we found out that we could buy them their old age pension. So we could top up their old age pension, and then they would get monthly checks every month. And this is good, because this is where Suzanne got her 3,000 RMB a month, and Liao Tong, I think he's making about 1,800 RMB a month. So because we bought him a house and whatever, he's doing okay. And now, you know, up until just a couple of months ago, we were in Canada, and we were dealing with Wei Fong's health issues, so we couldn't be here. But the sister-in-law was here up until last month. Yes, and she flew the coop. That marriage is over, and I guess that's the way it goes. So she moved out. So Liao Tong was now 81, 82, or 83 years old. We don't know. And he was living all by himself over here. And we knew that we had to come back and take care of him. So, you know, this is one of the reasons why we came back so quickly after Wei Fong got healed up. Yes, we got back, and Liao Tong was skinny. He's not all there upstairs. I think depressed. He was sleeping all the time when we got home. He would eat a half a bowl of rice, and this is a guy that would eat 3 bowls of rice and would never leave anything left on the table. He would eat it all. so the first couple of days, and we started buying really good food and fruit and all his other things, and he sort of came out of his little shell, and now he's back up to 2 bowls of rice, and all of the meat and everything is off the table. He's not sleeping as much. He's a little bit more coherent. He still can't hear anything, but he's sort of coming out of his shell now. So I think that he was just depressed, and you know, he's an old man. He was all by himself. They have laws against that in China. He could sue us. Yes, he could. And if we leave him alone for any extended time period, he should sue us, because you shouldn't leave an old person alone by himself. Back in 2011, his wife died. Yeah, she got lung cancer, and there's not much we could do about it. So she passed away in 2011. Because of superstition, he wasn't even allowed to go and see her in the hospital when she was dying. Why is this? And superstition changes from person, or from village to village, or area in China to area in China. But because, and the reasoning, because he was an old man and he was already so close to death that he shouldn't be any closer to death by being around somebody that's dying. And this was the reasoning behind him not going to see his wife when she was dying in the hospital. I didn't agree with it, but I'm not here to tell people whether their beliefs and superstitions are right or wrong. You just have to respect it. So Tong now is a very old man. He's gone through life from the 30s. He's seen he was around before the People's Republic of China existed. He's seen the wars. He's seen the famines. He's seen good times in being a manager of a big company here in Nanning during the communist days. And sure, China's still communist, but it's not like it was back then. It's more of a market economy here than you know, a communist regime like the Western media portrays it. And then he had hard times working on the streets, and you know, and then he had good times again because retired and has money in his pocket. And in 2010, Wei Fong and I brought them both to Canada for the summertime. So he got to travel farther and more than he ever thought he would. But we know that he's not going to last much longer. I call him Shuffles because he shuffles his feet as he walks. But this man has been through a lot in his lifetime, and yeah, you've got to respect that type of internal fortitude. I can see where Wei Fong gets her bullheadedness from, because everybody's seen that needlepoint that's on the wall in our place here in Nanning. And Wei Fong worked at least 6 hours a day, every day for 3 years to complete that. She gets that from her father. He worked his whole life to make a family, or a home for his family. And he started with nothing, with little education, and he went through his 80 years from being given away as a child. That's gotta do something to your self-esteem. He did keep his ties to his family members in Bobai because his sister, brother type thing. But still, you know, being given away as a child, making it on his own in Nanning City to the point where he became a manager, and then being knocked down to somebody fixing bicycles on the street and just putting his head down and doing it. Yep. Gotta give him a big E for effort, because I don't think there's a lot of people, especially in the West, that would work as hard and do as much as he has done in his life. Tong was the only person in the family that had a family hukou. Okay, and what does this do? You see, Susan didn't have a family hukou because she was the daughter of a Diza, and he was taken away during the Cultural Revolution. And the children follow the mother. So Tong had a family hukou, Susan didn't have a family hukou, Wei Fang had no family hukou, and Liao had no family hukou. Well, back in the day, if you didn't have a family hukou, You can't go to school. You can't get a rice ticket. What's a rice ticket, you may ask? Well, each person is given a certain number of rice tickets so you can go buy rice. Back when rice was at a premium, I guess. It's another way to keep people from being where they're not supposed to be. So Liao San Tong used his rice ticket to feed the whole family. You can see where times were tough for this family. You know, right up until 2003, when I met Wei Fong and she was 32 years old, they were still living off maybe $50 a month. Think about it, 50 Canadian dollars a month. That's a tough one. So to go from where they were to where they are right now, living in not a bad place with air conditioning and heating and beds and you know, nice kitchen, no rats and cockroaches and centipedes and snakes and, you know, all of these things, because where they lived on Gweilo, they had cinder block walls, but cinder block walls with holes in them so that the air could flow through, because that place was simply like a hot box. I've been in there in the summertime in August, and I'm telling you, it's 120 degrees inside and there is no airflow. My God, how would you live like that? They used to go and sleep on the roof of the building because it was just too hot and stifling inside the house. How would you like to live like that? But if that's all you've got, that's all he could do for his family. Well, they turned out pretty good, because Wei Fong is a great person. Susan was an excellent mother. Liao San Tong worked his ass off for his family, and Lao Ping is now a cook working in Vancouver in Canada. So it all worked out in the long run, and I don't think it would have if it wasn't for Liao San Tong. And that's the story of the life and times of Liao San Tong, an old Chinese man that was born in the 30s, and now it's 2019, and he doesn't understand the new world. He comes from a different world, and his time is coming fairly quickly. And that's another video, that's another story from Gweilo 60. Or that's the first story from Gweilo 60. If you like this video, as always, like, comment, subscribe, push that share button, and leave comments down below. Let me know what you think of this one. Bye now. I love Nanning City. Oh, love it here. Oh yeah.